All right, Justyn, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the channel. I know everyone is super excited. Everyone, when I mentioned you in my first video, everyone was like, I love her so much. So I'm super stoked that you were willing to come on.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been watching your channel for a very, very long time. So seeing that video at first, I was fangirling as well. I was like, oh my gosh, he said my name and he said it right. So it was really nice.
Well, I'm glad. I definitely had some help in the back end to pronounce the name correctly. So thank you to Rachel for she always keeps me on my toes. But I think the way that I wanted to structure this, because obviously the way that I came across your videos was the whole Weight Watchers thing, or WW, or however you want to say it. But I don't want to start there. I think I naturally kind of want to start at the beginning of your journey, which is great because your name is Justyn's Journey. Okay, I won't do that again. I know it's cheesy. But I'm kind of curious. So like, whenever I start these interviews, I love to understand how someone like gain their weight, right? Like for me, I was someone that was overweight my entire life. Like that was just normal for me. So like, what was your journey to, you eventually being like, I want to lose weight? Like, how did you get to that point?
So for me, I wouldn't say I was really overweight most of my life, but I will say I always had very poor, low self-esteem. So I always saw myself as much bigger than I actually was. So throughout childhood, I was probably like average weight. And then once I got into high school, that's kind of where I started to pick up more of the weight. So in my senior year of high school, that's when I got my first car. So that meant I could go anywhere I kind of wanted to. And then I also had access to money. So for some reason for me, that equated to fast food all the time. Like I didn't want to eat the cafeteria food anymore. I just wanted to go to McDonald's, Cane's, Sonic, whatever. And then also my senior year, pretty much my whole life, I've been decently active. I was on dance line in high school. And then for my senior year, since I was one of the captains of the dance line, we became less active because we were more so focusing on the other members of the team. So that kind of equated to me eating more, like consuming more of those kind of foods, plus not being as active. That's where I started to gain weight. So I gained about 60 pounds just in my senior year of high school. And then moving on into college, that continued to like escalate from there. And then that's kind of pretty much where I started the whole dieting phase and all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting, like hearing people's stories, because like for me it was always, I just kind of slowly gained weight, my whole life. And it seems like, because that I was going to ask, but you kind of already went over it, was like, were you active at one point and then kind of stopped being active? Because that's something that you hear a lot about, is like people in high school, they were playing football, they were running track or whatever, they were doing cross country. And when you're in high school and stuff, you don't even think of that stuff as like exercise. It's just, this is what I do.
It's just what you do.
Yeah, I've been playing this X thing since I was a kid, and I continued doing it in high school. Then you get out of high school, and for a lot of people, like that means gaining weight. And so it seems like would you say that kind of explains your situation a little bit?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was super, super athletic as a kid, but like I played softball for many years. I kind of went over into like the dance, so taking dance classes, gymnastics one year. I felt like each year I was doing at least one thing, like karate at one point. But then in my senior year, it wasn't at a complete halt because I was still dancing with my team, but instead of doing like all the practices all week long leading up until the game, it was pretty much like I would watch the team do all the practices and then maybe do it myself a couple times, then the game. So it definitely like decreased a bunch, and then added on with all the extra food and stuff I was consuming. That's kind of where that started to go up from there.
Yeah, it's funny. I always kind of I talk about like I'm actually kind of glad, because when I started losing weight when I was 20, and I was like someone that was like terrified of driving. I still kind of am. It's my anxiety. And so I didn't get my license until I was 20. right?
A lot.
And
Yeah.
I had no money. Like your boy was
Uh-huh.
as broke as you can be. So I couldn't afford to buy food for
Mhm.
myself. So I like just had to, whatever my mom had have at the house. So I always kind of joke like it's a good thing that I started losing weight when I did, because if I didn't and I had that freedom and I actually had money, it would have been so bad. Because like,
Yeah.
yeah, I could go to a drive-through and just order whatever I want, and I have the money to be able
Mhm.
to do it. Oh, it would have been game over. But luckily, by the time I was driving, I was already trying to lose weight. So I
Yeah.
never really went down that kind of path, because I know for a lot of people
Mhm.
it's really, really difficult. Like just drive-throughs and just how convenient it really is. It makes it very, very hard.
Yeah, it was definitely the convenience for me. And like, it's interesting, even whenever I went into college, I stayed in my hometown and I stayed at home. I lived with my mom. So it wasn't like I really had that college experience being like in the dorms and like freshman 15, all that kind of stuff. But even though like I had access to like what my mom was cooking, at that point I was still so like into fast food. So I would literally just like leave home, even though she would have food for me there, and I would still choose to go to McDonald's.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
weird because it was convenient, but it would have been more convenient for me to eat what was there. But I just preferred
mhm.
burgers, fries,
it's
chicken, stuff.
it's that super palatable stuff. I mean, it's so hard because it's the perfect mixture of like sodium, fat, sugar. It's delicious, right? Like there's a reason
Mhm.
people are, if you want to say addicted or not. I know that's kind of a point of contention for a lot of people. But there's a reason why so many people struggle with it, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a reason for it. It's because companies make a lot of money to make you struggle with it,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so I think the next natural question is, what was, I call it my click moment, but what was the moment that you were like, yo, this is not like there's a problem that I want to address. I want to try and lose weight. What was that for you? Was it a moment? Was it just something over time? What was that for you?
I think it was something over time because, like I said, even though I was an average build throughout my childhood, I don't know if it was just me comparing myself to other people, like the other girls on the team, my cousins who might have been a size 0 or 1, and I'm a size 4. So in my mind, I think that's overweight. So I always felt bigger than I was. But in college, I will say I don't think it was at any given point, but I always knew that I wanted to eventually lose weight and be smaller than what I was. So that's kind of where I started dabbling in a whole bunch of different stuff. Keto, I tried paleo for a while, green smoothie challenges. It was a lot of like fad stuff, like super, super quick results. Um, but because I didn't really like fruits and vegetables, that was kind of like my issue with all of them because they were so heavily focused on that. Um, and for somebody who doesn't like it, that was hard for me to be consistent and hard for it to be sustainable for me, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. Yeah.
So those things weren't working out, you're like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm trying these, quote unquote fad diets. They're not working out. Was that when you found WW? Um,
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so what was that? How was that like? Because I know that you started it when I think it was still called Weight Watchers, right? And they actually had meetings and stuff.
Yeah, I think I was like right after they made the switch to
Okay.
WW. But yes, so I actually started going to the physical meetings. I found out about it online, like kind of on a whim. And then the very next day I went and I signed up. So from the moment I signed up, I had a lot of success right at the beginning. Like I think the first week I lost 8 pounds, and then within a month I was like 20 pounds down. And so for me, I guess it was the most consistent I had ever been. And it was, even though it's still a diet, it was more sustainable for me than any of the other ones that I had tried.
So
So,
before you go any further, like why, looking back now, why do you think that was? Like, why do you think that it was easier for you to stick to that compared to whatever diet that you mentioned in the past?
um, honestly, because it allowed a lot of flexibility. So with a lot of things, like whenever I was on keto, I was following this book. It's called Lean for Life. And on that, there was like a list of recommended foods, and there was a list of foods like do not eat. And a lot of the diets were like that. They would either give you a bank of foods that you should eat and probably tell you foods to avoid. But on Weight Watchers, you could still have McDonald's. You would just have to budget that out, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it was, I don't know, it was a little bit easier, and it's very, very similar to calorie counting if you think of it, because you could
Mhm.
also have McDonald's with calorie counting. But I think for me, going to the meetings, like having that kind of camaraderie already, and then also having the presence online, because by then I had already started YouTube, but it was very, very slow. Like not very many
Yeah.
people were looking at me. But once I started Weight Watchers, it was just like this whole new, I don't know, community kind of was very welcoming me in. So
That's
kind of made me want to stay.
that's what I was going to ask next was like, do you think part of it was the community? Because I know in Weight Watchers, there was like, you actually met with people, right? Like, that's a huge community, is such a huge like motivator in so many things. Like, I do CrossFit, and like, that's one of the things that people are always like, the CrossFit community, people call it a cult, you know, I'm sure some people call WW a cult.
Yeah.
Like, it's just how it is, right? Like, you become part of a community, and it makes things easier because you're excited and you have other people. Just community, as humans, we like to be around community, right? And then I think part of that for you, and this is definitely something that's, I'm going on a tangent, but like, this is definitely something that's helped me, is like the community that I have here on YouTube and on Twitch, and like like that helps me stay accountable 100%. Like, it definitely helps. There are some drawbacks which we'll get into later, but like,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely helps me with that. So you started doing Weight Watchers, you start losing weight, and then you start gaining a following because of like you're posting about Weight Watchers. Is that kind of what started happening there?
Yeah, I remember the first video for me that did really well. It was titled "How I Lost." How much was it? 50 pounds in 4 months. So that kind of
Oh
already for
yeah, that's a
me,
good one.
that was like, oh, so people care about results. Like people want to see that drastic before and after thumbnail. That's kind of how that played out to me. Um, and then from then on, I was steadily losing weight after that. So that's kind of where majority of my audience came. It was
Mhm.
probably once I lost like 50 pounds.
And then, so at what point did you, so like kind of going into, the video that you made that had me kind of, like find you, I guess, like when did you become like an ambassador? Was it right around that point?
It was. I think after I dropped the 50 and I made that video and that gained me some attention, that also gained the attention of WW, like
Mm.
as a company, I guess. So they had me in their magazine, so like an article about me, and then maybe a month or so later, they asked me to join their ambassador team.
So what was like when they first reached out to you, right? When like, the higher ups or whatever, however you want to explain it, when they first reached out to you, like how did you feel? Like, what did that feel like for you? Like someone that, was just kind of doing Weight Watchers by your own, fruition.
Yeah, I was in between being chill about it because honestly, I didn't really know what that meant. At the time, I had seen like on Instagram, some people would like in their not their username, but their title, they would put their first name and then WW ambassador. But I really didn't know what exactly that meant. But whenever them as a company, like I think we were on a Zoom call, maybe they told me about it, I kind of took it as an honor, and I didn't look at it as anything bad, I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Like they're recognizing me for losing weight on their program, and I guess they want to amplify or highlight, my story within their own community. So I looked at it as a really good thing from the beginning.
So, I mean, I guess you kind of tell me about your experience on, like being an ambassador. I don't know how long you were an ambassador for, but like, was there a point where you started to kind of notice that maybe things weren't, all rainbows and butterflies, and like, kind of what was that experience like for you?
It was pretty much immediate because I just felt like my journey was no longer mine. And
Oof.
I don't want to say like it wasn't really like a blindsided thing or anything. And that's why in that WW Ambassador video, I tried to preface the fact that, I didn't feel like it was a good fit for me because I was questioning myself majority of the time. But I don't know, whenever I started it and it was more of like me sharing my story because that was just fun to me. YouTube is my hobby. It's just what I do, versus feeling an obligation. You need to post XYZ. I posted something that I didn't include like a disclaimer. Like you have to have like legal verbiage for any like before and after pictures if you're an ambassador. Like I lost X amount of weight on WW, yada, yada, yada. And I didn't put that and then got in trouble for that. And then I put something in my video that I wasn't supposed to, got in trouble for that. And then it was like, Justyn, why aren't you posting all of these things that we're sending you? Got in trouble for that. So after a while, it kind of just, it made me stop posting, like lowering my frequency, because I felt like everything I was doing was being judged, you know? And I was either not doing the right thing or doing too much of something. So I don't know, it just put a bad taste in my mouth. And not that anything is really about money, but the fact that we weren't even getting paid for this, but at the same time, I was having brands kind of pay for advertisement on my channel. But yet this brand that is like the main brand, I'm not even getting paid for someone kind of dictating what I do with my content. It just, I don't know, it put a bad taste in my mouth.
Oh, dude, I totally 100% can. I mean, I'm a pretty nice person when it comes to like brands and stuff. Like, I'm pretty chill. But if someone's gonna tell me what I can and can't post and they're not paying me any money, I'm like, no. Like, what do you? No, absolutely not. Well, I'm gonna post what I want. I think what you said at the very beginning of that kind of statement, I felt like my journey wasn't my own. That that hit me, because I know that there are so many people that have felt similar ways, especially like not even just like being an ambassador for Weight Watchers, but just getting a following online. This is something I've talked a lot about, getting a following online because you've quote unquote, you're an inspiration, you've lost weight and you're inspiring other people. It is very cool. And there's a ton of positive from it, but there also is negative, because you do feel like you owe it to someone, to your followers, to lose weight or to be this thing or to be that thing. And it can be very overwhelming. And I've struggled being someone that has this awesome platform, and I'm so lucky, is like I'm always almost afraid to like shine a light on people, because I don't want that to be like a negative thing that they experience, right? Like, I want it always to be, a positive thing. So what I'm trying to say there is, like, I totally understand what it's like to get, quote unquote, like popular because you've like lost weight. When you were an ambassador, one of the things that the other women talked about on like the podcast, where they kind of go over everything, where I got a lot of the information, was like they were getting a lot of like questions that they were like, I don't know the answer to this. Like, did you feel like people were like almost putting you on a pedestal, and you were just like, I don't know if I should, if they should be asking me these questions, like very specific, nutrition questions or whatever?
Absolutely. And I don't know, I guess because of what that other lady said, it was for all of the ambassadors. Because from my perspective, I didn't know if it was because I'm a WW ambassador or because I'm a YouTuber. So people, and I created my platform as a very open forum. Like, I said, I will always answer your DMs. I will, like, any question you can come and ask me, which I think I kind of bit myself later on for putting that out there like that. So I didn't really look at it as this is because I'm an ambassador, but I guess, a lot of them were also getting that. But yeah, a lot of people would come to me. And there was a certain point where I had to just refer them back to the app, because in the WW app, they have like a little chat room, I guess, where you can always ask like a coach a question or something like that. Because there were a lot of things that I couldn't answer because I wasn't a professional. All I did was my own experience, but that doesn't make me well-versed in everybody else's, challenges and struggles.
Okay, so I kind of want to talk about like once you started feeling like maybe this isn't for me anymore, and then you made your video. I'm just kind of because I know you don't want to talk too much about this, so I just kind of want to get past this chapter. So like, what inspired you to make that video, and then I guess like what was quote unquote like the aftermath or whatever of that that video and you kind of making your statement.
Well, I'll say that even though, because I believe I was an ambassador for like a year. Even though I was feeling some type of way, at the same time, my weight, that was when I had a crossroad with my weight and it started going back up. So in my mentalness, I was thinking like, even though it was something I didn't want to do and I had temptations to quit pretty much every single month, I looked at it like I should be grateful, because I don't know, I kind of looked at it like I was the issue, or like, something like that. So anyway, once all this stuff started happening with WW, just dealing with like Black Lives Matter and like ambassadors being added to the group, and just, I don't know, it was so questionable. And I'm the type of person, I really like to believe the best in people, but
Same.
I don't know. It just got to the point where I was like, why am I staying with this? Why am I feeling like it's an honor when I genuinely, this isn't even something I, like, I remember I was on a podcast with another member, and everything was going great. And she asked me, she was like, so you're a WW ambassador? And I remember my whole demeanor was like, because I didn't even want to claim it. I didn't want to get into that, because to me, it wasn't like and that kind of told me there. I was like, well, why am I sticking with it if it's not even something I'm proud of, So I forgot the second part of your question. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, like, what was the thing that kind of, because you made that video, and I know that was like a big deal, right? Like, I at least in that community, right? So what was there a thing that prompted you to finally make the video? Because I know that when you made it, you could tell that you were like, I want to make this, but at the same time, I don't really want to make this. So like, I could tell it wasn't like you were like, oh, okay, I got the tea ready, like, let's do this. Like, that obviously wasn't the vibe that was put off. So what finally kind of drove you to that point? Again, only if you're comfortable with sharing this stuff. And then like the aftermath, like, I'm really curious, like, did Weight Watchers ever reach out to you once you made that video? Like, was there any communication with them after it,
Yeah. So what I think the last straw for me is that after the whole, we had George Floyd's death, and then we had all the rioting and stuff, and then pretty much every company in America decided we're going to do better and be better. So then me realizing that the percentage of Black ambassadors was not going up, I don't know, that was kind of like my last straw. And I felt like, since I had already been so open about just everything with my journey, but also being a WW ambassador, like, because when I first became one, it was like this celebration thing. I made a whole video about it. So I felt like I couldn't step away from it without acknowledging it as well. So that's kind of what prompted me to make the video. And I try my best to do it just strictly on facts. It wasn't like really my emotions. I was like, this is just what happened. So that is what it is. So probably a week after I made that video, I did hear back from WW. It was I believe her title is the Chief Branding Officer. So I hopped on a Zoom call with her, and there were two other ladies. One was their head of diversity, and I'm not exactly sure what the title of the other lady was. In that call, they were very, very sweet, and it wasn't anything disrespectful, but I could just tell it was straight up damage control. And I was just thinking in my head, what is the point of this conversation? Because it had nothing to do with what I said in the video. It had nothing to do with really the ambassadors. It was just like, I hear your conversation, we saw your video, but look at this other great stuff that we're doing, which I didn't have an issue with to begin with. So I was like, I mean, that's great, but what's the point? Why are you telling me? It was almost, I took it as they wanted me to relay that back to my audience. Like, I know I just talk crap about WW, but they're doing other great stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely deal with that with a lot of companies. Like, I've been in so many meetings where I'm just like, why are we here? Why? What are we, like, this is just us talking, and like, literally nothing has changed. Like, my mind is this, like,
Exactly.
trust me, I know exactly what that's like. So, what has it been like since then? Because I know that you said, like, your journey hasn't been a straight shot, which no one's ever is. Like, so what has it been like? Because one thing that I really wanted to touch on is being quote unquote public figure inspiration, weight loss inspiration online. How has it been for you, like, going through the ups and downs, and like, has it been hard for you, being online and sharing a journey and being open? Like, what has that been like for you?
It's been very difficult because people, like, when things are going well, so when I'm losing weight, essentially, everybody's so happy for me. It's a bunch of compliments. It's almost like praising, like putting me up higher, which in the moment, I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm like, oh, okay, this is nice. I'm getting some attention for my weight loss. But when things start to go the opposite way, it's just straight up, first of all, it's embarrassing. It's hard on me myself, but then I have to tell people. And I felt like since I had been so honest in the beginning, like for the first while I was gaining weight, I was still taking the approach like, it's okay, I'll get it back together, it's fine. Like I was still chill about it. And then when I realized like, ooh, I've gained 40 pounds in 3 months. And I had to make that initial like, guys, I'm really, really struggling. That was hard. And then a year later and I'm still struggling and I've gained even more weight. And now like the hateful comments are starting to come. Yeah, that's been difficult.
Yeah. It's tough. Like I it's just so hard because when it comes to, this is my own analysis, so I could be wrong, but like from what I've noticed, when it comes to people that follow people that have lost weight or are trying to lose weight, they also are going through that journey, right? And so they put this person, it could be me, it can be you, it can be whoever, right? They put them on a pedestal, and then when they see them maybe not measuring up to what they had intended, they almost feel like it's like proof that they will also never lose weight, and so they almost feel like attacked. And so it can be very, very toxic. And this is why I say, like, all the time people are like, I want to lose weight and I want to gain a following, what should I do? I'm like, first off, understand it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Like, really think if you are going to be able to handle the positive, which is great, but there also will be negative. Like, I've gained like 10 pounds and people are like, you've definitely gained some weight. And I'm like, yeah, I've gained 10 pounds in a year. Like, I don't know. Like, so it can be really, really difficult. So I definitely feel you on that. And I think it really, really is it's something that like I know exactly how it feels, but it's so hard to relate to for other people that might not have a following. They're just like, nah, it's not that big of a deal. But when you have hundreds or thousands of people commenting on how you're gaining weight and how you used to inspire them, it's not easy to hear that. Like, it's just not. That's not going to inspire someone to want to like get back on it. So
Exactly.
I definitely understand that. So I guess to end it, like where are you at right now? Like, how are you feeling? What is your goals in the future? I don't want to end on a negative thing, you know. So like like where are you right now? Your eyebrows are on fleek, you know. Like what's going on? I already said that before we started the interview, but I had to put it in the video, you know.
Thank you. I am in therapy right now because I think throughout this whole process, it's made me realize that the issues are much deeper than what I can see. And the problem is a lot bigger than just me or what WW or any other diet or program can do for me. Um, so I have a nutritional therapist now. She has been helping me a lot just with healing my relationship with food and everything. She kind of does not preaches, she practices based off of the intuitive eating realm. So I'm going in that direction, but I will say I'm almost a little hesitant to say I am intuitively eating because coming from everything with WW, I almost don't want to label myself again as Justyn's journey an intuitive eater because I'm very likely to mess up. I'm very likely to just, I'm human like anybody else. So I'm kind of just experimenting right now, regardless if it's intuitive eating or not. She's just really helped me to, I don't know, kind of realize how much diet culture has influenced me. So moving forward with that, I think I'm going to continue to take people along with this new journey, I guess. But also make sure people are very well aware that I'm filming this in real time. I'm very likely to, I don't know, things may change, things may not. But I think that also the biggest thing is that I put my weight loss on a hold, which is probably the first time I've done this in like a decade. So right now, my main focus really isn't to lose weight, and just kind of taking that pressure off myself has been helpful because I've just been allowing myself to kind of, for one, accept myself, be free, just chill out for a second, like kind of regroup, figure out what I'm doing with my life before I, maybe try to do that again.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to what we do, which is like, influencer kind of weight loss, whether or not you want to be labeled that or like, just like, I think one thing that is invaluable is honesty. And I think that like, that's something that seems like you've always kind of shown. Because once you start being dishonest about stuff and people have to quote unquote expose things, that's when stuff can get really bad. So I feel like that's definitely the right kind of path. So the last question I will ask, this is what I ask at the end of all of these, is like, it's not that intense, but if there was like one thing you could say, to your former self when you were first starting the journey, or maybe just someone that might be in your position, what would you say to that person?
It's a great question. I don't know. If I could tell my former self anything, it would be to think about why I'm doing what I'm doing instead of just trying to find a solution. Because I think I tried so hard to just find quick results, and that, for one, set me back a good 7 years or so. And if I would have done now, and I know there's no way to have been able to tell that back then, but if I would have been doing now what I could have done then, I just wonder where I could have be. So also mental health is very important. So yes.
Awesome. I love it.
Thank you so much.